Hello and welcome. It's Matthew David, the Minister of Allowing, and we are getting close to showtime for the Spiritual Special Forces Workshop, and it has been one heck of a ride so far. So I titled this talk, The Age of Predatory Economics and Death by Algorithm, very similar to what Max Kaiser put out the other day. I thought it was a very good show that he had, very much in alignment with what has been happening in current events. So welcome, Christina, Anisha, and Nolan. So yeah, predatory economics is what seems to be running the landscape these days. You know, they say desperate times bring about desperate measures. Well, it seems like there's no end to what people are capable of. And when I heard the talk about death by algorithm, that to me was an incredible piece, because it talked about how you have human beings programming the machines, and they're not held culpably responsible because the machines run the algorithms, for instance, that prescribe the opioids to the lower economic echelon of society and cost about 70,000 deaths a year over the last 10 years or whatever. They get fined $100 and some million, which is nothing to them. And meanwhile, you've got nearly 1 million people that are obsolete from the planet because of an algorithm. And nobody is held responsible but the algorithm. It's very interesting, isn't it? So welcome, Randy. Welcome, John. Welcome, Bobby, Lawrence. So what do you do to safeguard yourself in a world where nothing seems to make sense anymore? The landscape for everything is completely changed. And there's no shortage of supply when it comes to lies and deception. The world is just chocked full of lies and deception from every angle. Welcome, Mitch. Welcome, Michael and Dave. So what's on your guys' heart this week? What's going on in your lives? And where are you at? Because with everything going on, from the coronavirus to, you know, the political circus that seems to be never ending. It's always in your face. They always got to have something going on so they can flash it right in front of your face. It's just this never ending drama of what I call mortal fiction. And mortal fiction is the world out there that has to beguile you, and it has to tempt you, and it has to draw you in. Otherwise, you'll find your way back home and you'll drop it altogether. It's an illusion. And all of the institutions of power are ultimately an illusion held together by a whole string of misconceptions about who's in charge. Welcome, Sabrina, Sergio, Mikkel. So who's in charge is God. God is always in charge. There is no other power, no other mind, no other principle. But that world out there is quite cunning, and it's quite deceiving, and it will catch you. And those who are prone to that world, who have made joinder with that world, they can beguile you as well. So welcome, Julian. I found a tool years ago. And the tool that I found years ago that allows anyone to see under the hood so you can understand what's really happening is something called reverse speech. And it was officially discovered by David Oates, and that was decades and decades ago. And what it gives you the power to do is to listen to what's being said, not from the conscious mind, but from the unconscious mind. And the unconscious mind doesn't lie. And the most interesting part about it is that it gives you the capacity to know what's happening in a realm where you can even interpret someone else's thought from your own mouth. And you see, this is not getting caught in trying to assume someone else's volition. You're not trying to make opinions. You're not trying to say, well, you know, I think they did this because of this reason. What you can do is you can actually know, because you're actually using their words and hearing the reversals that come through those words. And it makes a crystal clear picture of what's truly going on. So who's fascinated by that? Welcome, Andrea and Ryan, Sasha and Casey and Lawrence. Good to see you all here. Can you guys hear me out there? I haven't heard any comments here. So I'm wondering if you guys can hear me. Hopefully I'm not just here babbling and nobody's actually hearing the thing I'm saying. But in any case, you know, I recently did a couple reverse speech transcriptions, and they were pretty accurate, and it was mind-blowing to say the least, because the thing you think you heard is not what you heard most often. It's usually that we're having conversations on two different levels. People speak in one tongue, but their motives lie in another realm. And so the motives always come out with the reversals. And what I've been doing recently, even beyond that, is taking it to myself. And so taking it to yourself, welcome Tony and John, is even more effective, because here's the deal. When someone shows up and they offend you in a world out there, it's actually yourself. So you got to take responsibility from within and say, you know what? This is crap. I'm not going to accept this in my life, but I take responsibility because it showed up in my world. In other words, it's part of me showing me what I need to look at within myself. So what I do from there is I write a script, and you can just write. You don't have to say, oh, I have to be perfect. I have to do this exactly the right way. You just start writing what's going on in your life. You just start journaling and try to use in the same way that you would talk. Just talk and journal. You know, this is what happened. This is what's going on. I feel this way, etc. And then take your words and get your reverse speech app on your phone and talk like I am right now. Welcome, Dennis. Welcome, Randy. Just like this. Nice, simple, to the point words in a way that you would communicate, but slow it down and then play that thing backwards and listen closely. And the unconscious mind speaks really weird. It kind of speaks like Yoda. It's kind of confusing at first, but when you get the hang of it and you start to listen to yourself again and again, you'll start to notice patterns that show up repeatedly. And you can also get help with this. You can go online and you can type in Google reverse speech dictionary, and you can see the dictionary David Oates made, and it's free to download, and you can see a lot of the words and the interpretations. Now, I just want to give you a little bit of insight from a recent business happening that was in my realm, is that I did a reverse speech recently on a business deal that we were considering, and it was mind-blowing. It was mind-blowing. So what came up was not very pleasant to hear, but it was actually what needed to be heard. Because what jumps out are the real motives. The real motives jump out. And sometimes you don't want to see the truth. You don't want to hear the truth. But let me tell you this. One of the biggest secrets in life, if you're going to actually be prosperous, is to face reality head on, and to face whatever is for what it is, and not deceive yourself to believe you didn't know, as if you knew, you trusted your intuition, but then you doubted yourself, and then you reasoned, and usually right after that you get snowed, and you get hustled and you get bamboozled. But what if instead next time, welcome Marisol, what if instead next time you took that email that they wrote you, or you took that voice message, or you just listened to them and record it, and you played it backwards and you really listened and you really took the time. And now I did a reverse speech on myself today, for instance, and I spent 3 hours on doing this. Why would I do that? Why would I waste 3 hours of my life doing this? Well, it's not a game. It's not just a hobby. It's not like playing video games for adults. What I'm saying is this. After what I experienced in my hologram out there occurred, I reversed the tables and I looked within myself with my own words to see what was going on in me that brought that into my life. And this goes beyond the traditional use of reverse speech that I know of, because everybody wants to look out there and they want to pin the tail on the donkey out there and say, this is the problem. And while I agree that a problem could show up in your outer experience and you may need to cut that out from your life, you need to look within yourself so that you don't keep putting a new problem in once you cut this one out. And so what I did was I took the morning and I did a lot of what I'm going to teach. In fact, it's going to be done in the training. So if you're coming to get the Spiritual Special Forces Operators Manual at the workshop, you're going to have some time to do this, and I'm going to show you how to master this. Because you can do more for yourself by doing this in a matter of 3 hours than you could do in 3 months or 3 years if you're sitting there tinkering around in your reasoning mind looking for a motive. Why not just get the motive, and why not just get the lesson? So I spent 3 hours and I heard the lesson over and over and over and over and over. And I'll be honest with you guys. I had an emotional moment. I had to go lay down for a while because I realized something inside of me has not been healed. It's been lingering for a long time. And like I said, you can do more in 3 hours than you could do in 3 years if you're just willing to quiet yourself down and stop running away from what's inside of yourself and look within to find the answer. And I processed all of it. And I discovered exactly what I'm doing that puts this in my life. And that to me is pure gold. That to me is everything. Welcome, Beverly. Because here's the deal. When you think someone shows up out there that does you wrong, hurts you, offends you, misleads you, well, the problem is if you fix that problem, another one's going to show up. And like German New Medicine, on these tracks that we create, one could show up next week or it could show up in 9 years from now. And what happens is that these tracks get stronger and stronger because you didn't get the lesson the first time, the second time, the third time. You kept looking out there to try to fix a problem in the world of effects instead of the world of the cause. And the world of the cause is the inner world. And so what I'm saying to you is not to use a tool like this to sit and listen to politicians and say, oh, that lying piece of crap, I knew he was lying, what a scum. Obviously, you're going to hear all kinds of stuff when you listen to people and you reverse speech them. You're going to hear all that stuff. That's phase one. Phase one is you get the aha moment where you're like, oh my goodness, I knew it. I knew it all along. I felt it, and now I heard it for myself. But phase two is when you say, that's another representation of myself. I'm going to go ahead and look within myself at what I'm experiencing, what my emotional state is right now, being triggered by this, and you capture it with a pen and you write it down so that you can get clarity. I feel this way. This is what happened. This is what I think about it. And then nice and slow, you read it out loud, and then you record it and reverse speech it, and you get those brain waves lowered. Here's another tip. You get your brain waves nice and low. I'm always in an alpha theta state when I do it, because when I speak it, I can get entire messages that come through, and I'm like, what is this saying? Like, who is this other being talking? Well, it's not another being, it's you. It's the real motive that drives the engine. It's the consequence of the attitude state that you're in. And so what happens next, and I'll teach it at this workshop for those of you guys coming, it's going to be life-changing. I know it will, because I've been using this, and this is a new training. God gave me this whole training, and it's powerful. I've gone through a lot of onion layers that have been coming up, forcing all of this stuff out inside of me out. It's layer after layer after layer. And so then we get down to these attitude states. And like I mentioned in a video a few days ago, if God already knows your end, that means God already has planned all of your steps, which means the only free will you actually have is in the choice of attitude that you demonstrate towards life. I'm sorry to tell you this, but the only free will you have is your attitude towards life, because the circumstances reported to you by your five senses are being recorded in whatever vibrational state you're in. So that determines how you, A, focus on things, B, what those things mean, okay? And then C, those become the beliefs that govern your life. But it's all driven. It's all driven in this whole resonant field that comes out of the heart. And so your heart carries the issues of life. And so the most important thing we can do is to know thyself. Because the outpicturing of ourselves in our hearts is what's causing all of the disruption on the planet. People are terrified. 100 million people quarantined. It could be more than that. We don't know the full story, but if you reverse speech it, you'll get a lot more of the story. I did that today as well, too. I won't reveal it publicly because who knows how safe that is, but you can know these things yourself. And so what you have going on here is you have a world of fiction outside of yourself. It's the dream of Adam that walked to the earth. The first Adam that walked the earth, that dreams through the human five senses. And that person, it doesn't matter whether they win or lose, it's how they place the blame. That's all that person cares about. But as you ascend and as you grow into your full potential, you recognize that the world is actually inside of you, and that the reflection that appears to be real outside of you is a dead carcass. It's an empty shell. And so what it's doing is it's doing for you the benefit of teaching you through the schoolmaster, through the life that you're in, where you have fallen out of alignment with God's reflection in God's image and likeness. So you could say that this whole workshop that I'm going to be doing here in a couple days is really all about you being in alignment with God and knowing how to check yourself before you fall again and again and again in the same trap over and over, wondering who always shows up at the scene of the crime. It's you. And so here I am, I've had one heck of a week, like I said, because I'm digging now. And now that I'm digging, I'm getting all sorts of new experiences. Some are very enjoyable, and some of them are also like a Herxheimer reaction, like a detox of emotional crap that had been buried deep, that was waiting for this opportune time to deal with the root cause and the core of it. So Dennis says the internet's slow, maybe the full moon. Well, you know what? If it's a full moon, that's great. What a good time to do this exercise, to go deep and dig. Welcome, Tim Pecco. Welcome, Bruce. So Sergio says, what reverse speech do I use? Well, I use the app. I'll show you. This one right here is the app. And you can download it for the iPhone. I use the one on the iPhone. I think they have one for Android as well. It was free, and it works. And then I upgraded it so I could save the archived ones for like a few bucks. So I use the one, it's called Reverse Speech. Very, very efficient, very good. And so consequently, I'm very, I'm very pleased with what's happened. And, I started digging into flow state. Well, several years ago, I started digging into flow state because of the brainwave training with alpha and theta. And once I got really good at it, where I could sit in theta for long periods of time and hold alpha, I started to learn about the true definition of laying down your life for Christ is really about embracing this level of fear of letting yourself completely go, completely letting you go, losing yourself to gain yourself. And then I started having more experiences where I could flow and write books in a day or two and just flow, just like you did back when you played sports. Everybody knows the state. You've had it at one time or another. It's a state beyond thought. It happens in that 4-second gap before thought kicks in. And it's completely built on a level of trust. And that trust has to come from a place of knowing that there is something to trust. Otherwise, fear will torment your 5 senses so much so that your reasoning mind will never let you go. And they call that the troubled anxiety state. So we want to steer clear of that because A, it drops your vibration extremely low when you're in an anxiety state, worried about tomorrow. Anxiety is always worrying about what's to come, not realizing that the very anxiety itself is guaranteeing that what's to come is going to match the anxiety. So it's a conundrum of being trapped in your mind. And all the good stuff in life happens outside of that reasoning thought in your mind. Otherwise, you're nothing more than a calculator of stored memories in the memory stick. And if that's all you're good for, is a repeatable, reactionary human automaton that is triggered by stimuli, well, then you're very susceptible to all sorts of control mechanisms. And most likely, fear is going to be the predominant weapon against you. And I'll be the first to admit, the onslaught of all this fear in the media, I don't think it's ever been as high as it is right now. There's always another story, another fear, another this, another that. We have the impeachment. Now we've got all the tables are turning. Now we've got the coronavirus, and then we've got the economy, and we've got all these things constantly in your face. And what does that tell you? It tells you that you're not in control of your life. It tells you that there is some power out there that tips the scales of good on the side of bad, negative, harm, terror, fear. And when you make an agreement with that, when you say, I'm going to put my attention on it because that's delicious. When you put your attention on that, you start to resonate with it. That's committing adultery. You're committing adultery with the mind of Lucifer. You see, God is the only power, presence, and principle, but God also created all things and called them good, including what you consider evil. And it's designed as a schoolmaster to bring you to repentance. So how can God allow all of these horrible things that could literally wipe out millions and millions of people? Well, you're going to have to ask that question yourself. You're going to have to ponder that with your own search for the truth, because only you can discover that truth yourself. Nobody can tell it to you and give you the answer. You're going to have to repent on your own. Welcome, Stephanie. And so if you lie awake worried about your bills, about your health, about the safety of your loved ones, about tomorrow, or anything that you think is a burden that you have to carry, then you're a creature of this world. You are identifying as a creature of this world. And unfortunately, that subjects you to the law of sin and death in Romans 8. You've just become identified as a mortal in the flesh, subject to the sins of the flesh, punishable by the penalties that are brought upon that sin. And those penalties are steep. Those prices are high. That fear is strong. It's mesmerism at its finest. So let me share some insights with you. I've given you some tools, shown you how to use them. Now let me share with you something that God shared with me. The deep state. Do we know what the deep state means? Well, when you reverse speech it says stay at speed. Stay at speed. The psychological warfare of Lucifer to keep you spellbound in a world of fiction, to lower your vibration with fear, to keep you staying at speed. What's speed? Fear resonates at a low density. It keeps you bound to this world, to the ideas of this world, to the sickness, poverty, and suffering of this world, and all of the plagues therein. So we're here, again, this is a schoolmaster, to witness to God's all-sufficiency in all things, the good in all things. If you read the book of Joel 2, and I'll read that to you in a moment, the deep state are the locusts sent by the Lord. So what good would it be for you to go ahead and reverse speech the characters of the deep state, the stay at speed, if they were sent by the Lord? So you could actually point the finger at them and become enjoined with them, because now you're both resonating at the same frequency. We must learn to put the state on trial. And I'm talking about the state of your vibration that you're allowing or disallowing. So this is figuratively and metaphysically speaking. If the state is what makes this unwitting slave chattel via the birth certificate fraud, whereby you're considered dead, lost at sea, cargo being transported through ports, handed over to a dock, and your manifest or your manifestation is authored by an authority, well, you must be given full disclosure on the terms of the contract, and you were. You're informed by the reflection of your outer circumstances. That's how you've been given full disclosure of the terms of your contract. It's right in plain sight where you'll never see it. So they literally inform you into a physical vessel, a ship in a sea of space. And Romans 8:10 gives you the remedy. If Christ be in you, the body is dead. See the idea, the body of knowledge of this world, the body of Lucifer, the mortal that returns to the dust, the flesh. It's dead because of sin, but the Spirit, God, life eternal. It's life because of righteousness. So Christ is your living imagination, the way, the truth, the life. We must turn all of our thought towards the good God and live in the state of being Spirit-filled, lacking for nothing, expressing everything from within. So we don't pursue remedy in the politics out there. The world that's set before us to beguile us into the fear and sin, it's the world of Lucifer, a matrix. See, the word politics means affairs of state. See, politics is an outpicturing of our state of being. It's the affairs of state made manifest in our hologram so we can witness to ourselves the contract we're making. How do you like the political circus? Well, how do you like your state? Because you're the state. So you have to go within and change yourself from within. You're not responsible for the whole world. You're responsible for you, and that makes you responsible for the whole world at the same time. So welcome, Angel. Welcome, Randy and Mitchell. So tell me what you think so far. Put some comments on the board. Let me see what you got going on here. Are you guys enjoying this, or am I just talking to myself? I don't mind talking to myself. I do it all the time, actually. But my aim here is to talk about wisdom so that more wisdom will come upon me. I like to give out what I want to receive. It's a big secret. If you're running low on money, it's because you don't give with a loving heart to enough satisfaction in your world. You're afraid to give. Well, you're not going to run out of hugs. You're not going to run out of money either, as long as you keep the fear out of the equation. If you don't have love, it's because you don't love enough. Because you're the source of all things in your world. You can't blame it on anyone else. Trying to figure out if I should read one or the other. I can't decide. I'm not sure if I should read anything tonight. I might not. So let's see what we got here. Tony says he's enjoying it. Andrea says learning a lot. Bobby loves it. Dennis, okay, it's McDonald's Wi-Fi and not the moon. I agree. McDonald's Wi-Fi is probably not giving you the highest speed right now. So maybe we need to watch the replay. Angel is enjoying it. Great. Andrea. Me, I talk to and answer myself. Yes, you do. Mitchell says pure enjoyment and value. Good. So give me 1 second here. So you remember that I said the deep state, reverse speech, means stay at speed. And we don't have to look very far, but the mainstream media to find out what speed that resonates at. So in Joel 2 in the King James Version, let me just go through some parts of this. Blow ye the trumpet in Zion and sound an alarm in the holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord cometh, for it is nigh at hand. A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and a thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains. A great people and a strong, there hath never been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. A fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness. Yea, and nothing shall escape them. So I like that verse number 3. You see, a fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness. See, before you, before. So before you came along is the love of God. The love of God is the manifest force in your life. There's no other force. So before you came along, God is, and God is always eternal. So that part of you that came along that believes it's fragmented, has a birth date and a death date, that life is a desolate wilderness. That life is not your real life. Number 4 says, the appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen so shall they run. Like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains shall they leap, like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. So it goes on and on. But in verse 12, it says, therefore also now, saith the Lord, turn ye even to me with all your heart, and with fasting, and with weeping, and with mourning. So fasting, what are you going to fast? Fasting is to not participate with, whether that's food or the media or even this entire world that's a hologram, believing it has any effect that you would desire. It's the world of winter. It says, and rend your heart and not your garments, and turn unto the Lord your God, for he is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and of great kindness, and repenteth him of the evil. So this evil, this coronavirus, this stock market crash, this political circus, all of these games and charades and tricks that are coming from the world out there, the world of form, Lucifer's Babylon, it's designed to enslave you for eternity by holding you to its vibration. So every time you try to raise up out of it, it's going to raise the ante. And I've noticed this. I'm on this new level, and now all of a sudden, you've got a modern-day plague showing up that's the equivalent of the worst of all time. Well, what is that trying to suggest? That there's power in this world. That there's something to be afraid of. It's the ultimate exam in the final chapter, and you don't have to look any further than the Gospel of Truth back in the Gnostic Nag Hammadi texts to find out when Jesus became flesh in the world, it became agitated, stirred up, angered. Well, when you become the state of Jesus, when you occupy the state of the Christ, knowing that the truth is within, the Christ is your imagination, it's a living being, and the world out there is a dead carcass. Well, that thing out there, that wickedness, it's losing control of you. So it's going to stir, and it's going to become angered. It's going to throw everything at you. But Jesus, in the gospel of truth, he beheld only God, and he knew there was no power out there. The question is, now that you're choosing to ascend, are you going to do the same? Or will you quit before the exam is through and have to repeat the lesson over again? So let's go on here. And it says in verse 21, fear not, O land, be glad and rejoice, for the Lord will do great things. Be not afraid, ye beasts of the field, for the pastures of the wilderness do spring, for the tree beareth her fruit, the fig tree and the vine do yield their strength. Be glad then, ye children of Zion, and rejoice in the Lord your God, for he hath given you the former rain moderately. And he will cause to come down for you the rain, the former rain, and the latter rain in the first month. And it goes on to tell you in verse 25, and I will restore to you the years that the locust hath eaten. The deep state are the locust. That's what God put on my heart and revealed to me. God says he will restore to you the years that the locust hath eaten, the cankerworm and the caterpillar and the palmer worm, my great army which I sent among you. And you shall eat and be plenty and be satisfied, and praise the name of the Lord your God that hath dealt wondrously with you, and my people shall never be ashamed. And you shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, and that I am the Lord your God, and none else, and my people shall never be ashamed. And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh. Now, pause right there. So if we're going to have this epidemic plague, but God is saying, if you turn to him, that it shall come to pass afterward that he'll pour out his spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions. And he goes on to say, and I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. Welcome to that day. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be delivered. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as the Lord hath said, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call. So God, in my heart of hearts, is setting up the table for those who will trust in him to come to the greatest awakening that this planet that we envision collectively in our 5 sense mortal superstition realm of materiality, because God said he will pour his spirit upon all the flesh. See, that flesh out there that we're creating, that world is trembling and falling apart, and God is bringing forth the judgment now. So which side of history are you going to be on? Because history is his story. So which side of his story are you going to be on? Are you going to tip the scales to good and you're going to say only the good is true? Are you going to walk and rejoice in God as the world crumbles to the ground in front of you? Or are you going to be afraid, and are you going to have to repeat the lesson one more time around? Welcome, Mark. Welcome, Wesley. Welcome, Vicky and Sasha. So I'm excited about God restoring the years that the locust have taken. And so that's been on my heart, and that's the message for today. And so some tools are therein, some scripture, and I believe some prophecy as well. But again, I can only share with you what's in my heart. Every man, woman, and child that is called to the Lord must do their own seeking. You must seek yourself diligently, day and night, meditating on the word. And sometimes that's the easiest thing to do. Grab a verse that gives you a sense of relief. Because as I said in one of my transmissions the other day on YouTube, you see, the Prince of Peace that comes in your heart is that feeling of relief. You know, after a sudden thing was threatening to take good from you, or you went through some catastrophic experience, and that sense of relief came. And what happened in that moment is you tipped the scales to good, and you decided in that moment that the good was the real, in fact. And that's when that peace came in your heart. And see, Christ is the Prince of Peace. So no peace in your heart, no Christ. I'm sorry, But just because you said, Jesus, come into my heart, doesn't mean you are of the Father unless you demonstrate that you trust the Father enough to walk in his peace. You have to actually reflect his qualities back to him. Otherwise, you're reflecting something else. And our collective world is nothing but a collective reflection. We're looking in the mirror of ourselves. And that's why I call this the spiritual special forces. Because when you are aware that what's really going on is what's going on inside of you, then you take things to a whole new level with a whole new set of skills and tools that are designed to do exactly that, to get you in alignment with the will of God. And I find it interesting that, you see these reports that in China they burn churches and burn Bibles. You see these things. And I'm not saying that I know that firsthand to be true. But what I am saying is, when I think about the situation over there, and I watch the videos and I see people calling because they can't post on the internet, they're being censored. They can't get their word out. They want help. They're crying for help. They're scared. Imagine how you'd feel if 100 million people were on lockdown here and everybody's wearing masks all around you and they're forcibly taking you from your house, throwing you into a hospital with a bunch of people that are dying in front of you. Imagine how you'd feel if the world came crashing down on you like that. You see, in that moment, can you trust God? Will you trust God? Do you believe that your life is a reflection of God's love? Well, if you act that way now, and you hold that space for them, remember, them is nothing more than you. That's how you create change. You don't create change by taking concern over how you're going to take any human action regarding any of this. There is no human action. There's nothing you can do. All you can do is reflect what God has already done. You see, the irony is, God never changed. God never changed. Who changed? Who brought about all of this? If there is only one power, one presence, and one mind, and if all things were created for good, can't point the finger anymore at anybody. Nobody. Can't point the finger. You got to look within. The same goes for your finances. Same goes for your relationships. And then it's true. All things are happening for you. Things are happening for you so that you can become delicious in the sight of God. As it says in the ancient text that God is a man-eater. And people get stirred up about that. They say, well, that's why that Bible didn't make the canon, because it's just not congruent with the teachings. God is a man-eater. What blasphemy. Well, you see, the ignorant think God is a man in the sky with a beard, a white guy with a beard. They think he looks like, Chong, or, the guy from Cheech and Chong, or something like that. The truth is the tree of life is a thing that has been going on for centuries. And you see this fractalization that you see, like this life creating fruit. Okay. Life creates fruit from the tree of life, and you're the fruit. That's why they call it the fruits of the Spirit, because it's delicious in the sight of God. It's consumable. It's enjoyable. And when the fruit falls off the root, it has no more life attached to it, and it turns to this world, it oxidizes and destroys. And so when you're watching the media and you're out there watching the fear porn and you're having no root because you're not looking to God. You're looking out there, believing the claims of all the material senses. You're oxidizing and withering. So lest you become consumed by something that's alive, well, then your life won't be eternal anymore. You'll wither and die. So how do you get consumed by something that's alive? Repent and reflect God's qualities, the fruits of the Spirit, back to God so that you're delicious and you become consumed by God. More of God, less of you. And that brings me right back full circle to this whole flow state thing, where I can give you a transmission like tonight, and I go in and out of thought and no thought, thought and no thought, thought and no thought. And in that silent gap between thoughts, I'm receiving revelation. And I'm using thought to articulate at the same time. So John says, also the people in Iran look like they want to be free but are afraid of the government, rightfully so. Of course. Welcome, Phil and John. So that concludes my teaching for tonight. And I want to welcome everybody in advance that's going to be here in a few days to Sheboygan, Wisconsin for Spiritual Special Forces. You'll be getting one of these. It's going to be a very, very, very jam-packed training. This is not going to be a training where you're going to want to be tired and distracted. You're literally going to have no time for it. Day one, we're going to be hitting this book with skills training. You have about 7 skill techniques to learn. Day one that we'll be repeating every single day. And after skills training, you have a full day with former U.S. Navy SEAL Michael Jaco talking about mindset, intuition, flow state, all of these things from the perspective of someone who was with the U.S. Navy SEALs for many years and also the CIA, someone who's very enlightened. And then you go back and we're going to go into the deep layers of how to turn and repent to the Father and bring about the fruits of the Spirit so that your life becomes the reflection of those fruits. Prosperity. Prosperity is all good things. Not just money, but it does include money. So Zacharias, welcome, says, I just dreamed the most surreal things. It's full moon here and the energy is crazy. It feels like God wants to do something. I agree. Nolan Wilson says, all raw. That means gold AU, allow university raw, or gold raw. So Nolan is probably going to be challenging me to a fitness competition there because he asked the other day. And I don't know, Nolan. I don't know. That might be one that we might have to do. We might have to do it. I'll take you to the gym with me. I think it's going to be a real tight competition, honestly. So John says, will you be showing us how to get and be more of God? This is my larger wish. Well, you can't be any more of God than you already are. But I will be showing you how to remove the distortion that is clouding your vision. So yes, your answer is yes, but let me clean it up. So it's 4 a.m. where Zacharias is. That's great. You made it at 4 a.m. to watch this. That's incredible. I'm super excited that you're here. So everybody, yeah, thanks for being here. And let me remind you guys of this right here. If you've been to one of my trainings, if you've taken the Luxor online, don't forget to use this because your daily habits become your destiny. So you guys coming to the training will be learning how to implement these two things together. You're going to be learning how to build things, marketing, sales, all these things for a little while. I'm going to show you a lot of that real quick that I've learned and how to simplify it. But mostly you're going to really get really, really, really good at your vibrational management and your state of consciousness. And your awareness is only going to expand, and your power is going to multiply exponentially. Because it's all God's power, and when we get that clouded vision out of the way, you're going to see a lot more of God's power showing up in your world. And it's going to clean up your life too. It's going to clean up a lot of things. So Mitchell says, if we pay for the webinar, will we get a PDF of the booklet beforehand? Well, this book right here, if you pay for the event and watch it online, you're going to want to do that sooner than later, because I have them and they can be shipped out immediately. Otherwise, you'd have to get the PDF version, and you can get this as a follow-up. But to get it in your hands by Thursday, you probably want to have it sent out tomorrow. But yes, they're ready to go. And I would prefer to go with it this way. So if you're watching it online, what you're going to see is you're going to see me teach, and I'm going to have each slide on the screen, and I'm going to be teaching all of the mechanics of how to do all the techniques. And so it's going to be a lot of information. It's a little bit overwhelming, but it'll come together at the end, where when you repeat it a few times, I've done this about 5 times on myself, the techniques, and they're very, very powerful, very powerful. They're the best techniques I've discovered yet. A lot of the techniques combined together, you're going to have to master ABC break process, safe touch, self-entrainment technique. You're also going to learn some Theta brainwave programming. You're going to learn how to track some holodynes. You're going to learn how to do a little bit of timeline therapy. And then it all comes together in what I call the matrix recode. And that matrix recode is going to the bottom picture layer, the original imprint, the original frequency that sits in your now, that is distorting something God is demonstrating in your life, so that you can pluck it out. And just like when you're holding something underwater, you know, like a bobber, and you let go, it floats back up. So what I've discovered is these problems that we demonstrate in consciousness are a result of us denying some level of good through some distorted, abstract reasoning that has set up its own infrastructure in your heart and in your mind, and it's creating a personality. And that personality is the problem. And so what we do is we deal with it in a way that goes to the bottom picture, and it deals with the intelligence that's operating that software, and we destroy the software and remove it so that nothing but clear love, God, can be manifest through that channel. See, it's really about getting you out of the picture. It's crazy. I know it sounds absurd, but when you stop is where God begins. Because unless you're in alignment with divine love and God's will, you know, wholly separate from what your 5 senses tell you is the life that you live, is the life divine. It's a completely separate reality altogether. That's why it's amazing to listen to reverse speech, and it's amazing to see that there's this other reality of motive that can come out from human reasoning in the subconscious. But it's even deeper when you can find out that spiritual beingness has a whole nother level of reality that's already in harmony, and it's waiting for you to discover it. So Sasha says, we are going to be whelmed, engulfed, submerged, then we're going to float, then we're going to fly. I like it. All right, guys, I got to go get a workout in. Had a nice epic cheat day yesterday, one last one before the workshop. Got it all in, from pizza to donuts to pasta to you name it. Got to go work it off tonight, at least some of it, and get the body moving again and start fasting it down. I'm going to come in fasted for the workshop so that I'm clear. And if you guys are coming, I would just recommend that you don't come to the workshop expecting that you know anything. Don't come to the workshop expecting that you're going to change anything in your life. Don't come expecting anything at all. Just come and surrender your plans, surrender all of your desires, all of the things you think you're there for, whether you want to manifest a new Lamborghini or perfect health or a lover or whatever it is, or a better relationship with God. Just come and don't expect anything, and just be willing and ready for what's to come to present itself to you so that you can experience how life operates without your willpower even necessary at the highest level. And I think you'll find that fascinating, that the answer will show up before the question when you're in this state. So Marisol, abundance of blessings to all. Thank you, Marisol. All right, much love to you, Zacharias. All right, guys, I'm out. I'll see you guys after the workshop, possibly that Sunday night. If not that Sunday night, I'll see you the following Sunday night. So take care and God bless.
Hello, I'm Julie with Allow Ministries on behalf of Matthew David Hurtado. Are you ready to end self-sabotage, procrastination, and distraction? Clarity, certainty, and a proven plan of action is what it takes to get anything you want in life. Training is the answer. Matthew David Hurtado's Spiritual Millionaire Workshop is the one-step solution that finally puts you in control of your destiny. What Matthew discovered about building a 7-figure business and perfect well-being when he was bedridden and bankrupt with Lyme disease is that mentorship is success without the wait. It works. At allowuniversity.com, you'll discover how to walk in victory. Learn how to prosper in every area with unstoppable daily habits and a step-by-step training to build your dream business immediately following the event, a success training for a lifetime of achievement. Walk in financial increase, living a life you love. Go to allowuniversity.com and say yes to your destiny.